The ceramic exploded against the kitchen floor, coffee spreading like spilled blood across white tiles. My morning routine shattered along with my favorite mug as the phone rang with that particular urgency that cuts through peaceful moments like a blade. Kenneth Morgan speaking. I pressed the cold device against my ear, already sensing something was profoundly wrong. Normal calls don't arrive at 8:30 on Thursday mornings with such insistence. Mr. Morgan, this is Robert Sterling from Sterling Hayes and Associates. I represent your former wife, Isabella Chin Morgan. The voice carried that careful, professional tone attorneys use when delivering life-altering news. I'm afraid I have some deeply unfortunate information to share with you. My chest went hollow, that familiar sensation of dread settling in my bones. What kind of information, Mr. Sterling? Isabella passed away 3 days ago. Sudden cardiac arrest. The word struck me like a physical blow, each syllable reverberating through my small Queens apartment. Dead. Isabella was dead. I gripped the kitchen counter, my knuckles turning white against the worn formica surface. The morning light streaming through my modest window suddenly felt too bright, too ordinary for a world where Isabella no longer existed. That cannot be right. My voice sounded foreign, distant even to my own ears. She's only 50. She was always so vital, so determined to succeed. I understand this is profoundly shocking, Mr. Morgan. Sterling's tone softened with what seemed like genuine sympathy. The family held a private service yesterday. However, there's another matter we need to discuss. Isabella left a comprehensive will, and you were mentioned prominently in her estate planning. I sank into my worn kitchen chair, still processing the first devastating revelation. Me? But we've been divorced for 10 years. We barely spoke except about Brooke's schedule. Yes, sir. That's precisely why I'm calling. The will reading is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. Your presence is specifically requested according to Isabella's final wishes. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Now, let's return to this profound tale of unexpected revelation and family complexity. After ending the call, I sat motionless in my small kitchen, surrounded by the debris of my shattered morning. Coffee dripped steadily from the counter edge, marking time in a world that had suddenly shifted beneath my feet. I walked slowly to the living room where old photo albums gathered dust on forgotten shelves, my hands moving without conscious thought toward the leather-bound book I hadn't touched in years. There she was on the first page, Isabella at 21, laughing at something I'd said, her dark hair catching sunlight on the Boston University campus. Her smile was radiant, unguarded, nothing like the polished executive she'd become before our marriage crumbled under the weight of ambition and financial crisis. In this photograph, she wore a simple sweater and jeans, her economics textbook tucked under one arm, looking at me like I was the most fascinating person in her world. I touched the faded photograph, remembering how my heart had raced the first time I'd worked up the courage to approach her in the library. She'd been surrounded by intimidating textbooks about economic theory, but her eyes had lit up when I'd stammered my request for tutoring help. The economics section of Boston University's library had always intimidated me with its towering shelves of complex theories I couldn't grasp. But there she sat, perfectly at ease among the academic chaos. Isabella Chun had a reputation among our graduating class. Brilliant, ambitious, and completely out of my league as a simple business administration major. Her professors called on her constantly, knowing she'd have thoughtful, well-researched answers. Other students borrowed her meticulously organized notes. She carried herself with a quiet confidence that made my modest dreams feel pedestrian by comparison. Excuse me, I had managed one autumn afternoon, clutching my failing midterm exam like evidence of my academic incompetence. Could you help me understand supply and demand curves? I'm completely lost in this material. She'd looked up from her textbook, and I'd nearly lost my nerve entirely. Her eyes were warm brown, intelligent, and unexpectedly kind. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth as she considered my request. Supply and demand, she had said, closing her book deliberately. Sure, but only if you buy me coffee afterward. Good tutoring requires serious caffeine to be effective. That first coffee conversation lasted 4 hours. We'd claimed a corner table at the campus cafe, economics forgotten as we discovered each other's dreams and aspirations. Isabella wanted to revolutionize business through technology. This was 1995 when the internet was still mysterious to most people, but she saw possibilities others missed entirely. I want to create something that changes how people work together, she'd explained, eyes bright with ambition and possibility. Software that makes businesses more efficient, more human in their operations. I'd share my simpler dreams. A steady career, maybe managing a small company someday, definitely marriage and children. Dreams that seemed modest next to her grand visions, but she'd listen like they mattered deeply. You'd be amazing at management, she'd said with conviction. You actually listen to people when they speak. That's rarer than you might think in business. Throughout that spring semester, we'd become inseparable. Study sessions in the library evolved into long walks across campus, where she'd explain her latest business ideas while I'd point out the practical challenges she'd overlooked. We balanced each other perfectly, her soaring ambition grounded by my steady pragmatism, my cautious nature encouraged by her boundless confidence. Our first kiss happened under the blooming cherry trees near the student union. She'd been describing her internship interview when I'd stopped listening entirely, lost in the way afternoon light caught in her hair like captured sunshine. Are you even paying attention to me? She'd laughed, noticing my distraction. Always, I'd whispered. And then somehow we were kissing, soft and tentative at first, then deeper as months of building attraction finally found expression. By senior year, we were planning our future together with the certainty that only young love possesses. Isabella's startup ideas had evolved into concrete business plans, complete with market research and detailed financial projections. She'd work on launching her company while I'd provide stability through traditional employment. We'll be a perfect team, she'd said one evening as we'd walked hand in hand through Boston Common. Your practical mind keeps my ambitious ideas grounded in reality. My vision pushes you toward bigger dreams than you'd pursue alone. Graduation day arrived warm and bright with promise. As we'd posed for photos in our caps and gowns, I'd known with absolute certainty that this woman was my future, my partner in building something beautiful together. That evening, in the same cafe where we'd had our first coffee, I dropped to one knee with my grandmother's simple gold ring. Isabella Chun, you've made me braver, smarter, and happier than I ever thought possible. My voice had shaken with nervous energy and overwhelming love. Will you marry me and build this life together? Her yes had been immediate, joyful, accompanied by tears that made her eyes shine even brighter than usual. We'd married 6 months later in a small ceremony at her parents' house, surrounded by family and close friends. Simple vows, simple reception, simple dreams of building something beautiful together. We thought we had life completely figured out. Our first home was a modest 2-story house in Westchester with a small garden and enough room for the family we planned to build. Isabella had insisted on a corner office for her business planning, while I'd claimed the basement for a workshop where I could tinker with furniture projects on weekends. Those early married months felt genuinely magical. We'd wake up together, share coffee while reading different sections of the newspaper, then head off to our respective jobs. Isabella to her marketing position at a growing tech firm, me to my role as an assistant manager at a regional logistics company. Evenings belonged to us and Isabella's growing business dreams. She'd spread papers across our kitchen table, sketching organizational charts and software flowcharts while I'd cook dinner and offer feedback on her evolving ideas. What if your efficiency software could integrate with payroll systems? I'd suggested one autumn evening, stirring pasta sauce while she worked. Small businesses would love truly streamlined operations. Kenneth, that's brilliant, she'd exclaimed, jumping up to kiss me before immediately starting to scribble new notes. You always see the practical applications. I miss completely. When Isabella discovered she was pregnant in early 1999, our joy felt complete and perfect. We'd converted the spare bedroom into a nursery, painting walls soft yellow since we decided to wait for the birth to learn the baby's gender. Isabella had worked right up until her due date, determined to launch her company's beta version before becoming a mother. Brooke arrived on a crisp October morning after 12 hours of labor that left Isabella exhausted but absolutely radiant. Our daughter was perfect in every way. Tiny fists, dark hair like her mother's, and lungs that announced her presence to the entire maternity ward. She's going to change the world, Isabella had whispered, cradling our newborn daughter with infinite tenderness. Just like her mother, I'd replied, stroking Isabella's sweat-dampened hair. Those first months of parenthood tested us, but also strengthened our partnership in unexpected ways. We developed a sustainable rhythm. I'd handle night feedings so Isabella could rest before long days spent coding her software prototype. She'd take over when I'd return from work, giving me precious time with Brooke while she debugged programs and refined her business model. Isabella's business idea had crystallized into something truly revolutionary for its time. Cloud-based project management software that could help small businesses coordinate remote teams effectively. In 1999, working from home was still unusual, but Isabella had foreseen the coming changes in workplace dynamics. The internet is going to transform how people work, she'd explained to potential investors during late-night phone calls from her home office. Geographic distance won't matter anymore. Talent will be accessible globally, and smart businesses will adapt quickly. I believed in her vision completely. While she'd coded and pitched to investors, I'd managed our household finances, scheduled her meetings, and provided the stable foundation that allowed her creativity to flourish without distraction. We'd been a perfect team, her innovation paired seamlessly with my practical support. Weekend mornings became our sanctuary from the working world. Isabella would nurse Brooke in the rocking chair I'd built with my own hands, sunlight streaming through our bedroom windows while I'd bring coffee and fresh fruit. We'd plan our future together with the confidence of people who'd found their rhythm. The house we'd buy when her company succeeded. Vacations we'd take as a family. The second child, we wanted to complete our family circle. I want Brooke to see that dreams become reality through hard work and true partnership. Isabella had said one Sunday morning, our daughter sleeping peacefully in her arms. She'll grow up knowing that anything is possible when people genuinely support each other. By Brooke's first birthday, Isabella's company had secured initial funding and hired its first 2 employees. She transformed our garage into a proper office space, complete with multiple computer stations and a whiteboard covered in project timelines and strategic planning. We're really doing this, she marveled one evening, showing me their first quarterly revenue report with obvious pride. It's actually working exactly like we planned. I'd held her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, feeling profoundly proud and grateful for the life we'd built together. Isabella was achieving her ambitious dreams while remaining a devoted mother and wife. I was contributing through my steady income and unwavering support. Brooke was healthy and happy, growing up surrounded by love and infinite possibility. We had no idea what was coming to destroy everything we'd built. 8 years later, everything we'd carefully constructed began crumbling around us with terrifying speed. The morning news droned about market collapse and bank failures while Isabella stared at her laptop screen, coffee growing cold in her trembling hands. 70% of our clients just canceled their contracts, she whispered, not looking up from the devastating email chain filling her screen. The funding we were counting on for expansion, it's completely gone. The 2008 financial crisis hit our family like a sledgehammer striking glass. Isabella's company, which had grown into a thriving operation with 12 dedicated employees, suddenly faced bankruptcy despite years of careful planning. Overnight, our comfortable middle-class life became a desperate scramble for financial survival. I took a second job in construction, leaving before dawn and returning after midnight, my body aching from 12-hour days of manual labor I wasn't trained for. The executive position I'd held for 6 years disappeared in company-wide budget cuts, forcing me to accept whatever work I could find. Restaurant kitchen prep, weekend warehouse shifts, anything that paid cash immediately. Isabella stopped coming home for dinner, transforming her office into a refuge where she could pretend that working 20-hour days might somehow save the company she'd poured her soul into building. When I'd bring her sandwiches, I'd find her surrounded by empty energy drink cans and crumpled papers, her eyes red-rimmed from staring at computer screens for hours. "You need to eat something real," I'd plead, setting food beside her keyboard with growing concern. "I can't stop now," she'd snap without looking at me, her voice sharp with stress and exhaustion. "Every minute I'm not working, we're losing money we can't afford to lose." Our 9-year-old daughter Brooke began staying with neighbors after school because neither of us was home anymore. The babysitter we'd hired became more parent than we were, helping with homework, making dinner, tucking Brooke into bed while we fought increasingly desperate financial fires. One rare evening, when we all sat together at the kitchen table, the accumulated tension exploded over something trivial. Brooke asking innocently why we never went to movies anymore. "Because movies cost money we don't have." Isabella slammed her fork down so hard the plates jumped violently. "Everything costs money now. Do you understand that Daddy and I are working ourselves to death just to keep this house?" Brooke's eyes filled with tears. She was too young to understand economic collapse, but old enough to feel her parents' mounting desperation like a physical presence in our home. I reached for Isabella's hand across the table, but she pulled away sharply. "Don't," she said coldly. "I have 3 investor calls tonight that might save everything." That night, after Isabella locked herself in her office and Brooke cried herself to sleep, I sat alone in our darkened living room. I was surrounded by the life we'd built together. The expensive furniture we'd bought during better times, the family photos that showed genuinely happier faces, the dreams we'd shared about growing old together in this house. By 2010, we'd sold Isabella's engagement ring, my motorcycle, and most of our furniture to keep the business afloat. The house felt empty, echoing with the ghosts of better times and broken promises. Isabella's company survived, barely, but our marriage had become collateral damage in the war for financial survival. I should have recognized the signs that something else was breaking beyond our bank account and business dreams. 2 years of fighting for survival had transformed us into strangers living in the same house, but inhabiting completely different worlds. Isabella worked from her office until 3 in the morning, then slept until noon, while I juggled my day job with evening restaurant shifts. We passed each other in hallways like polite roommates, our conversations limited to logistics about Brooke's schedule and monthly bills that kept mounting. The discovery happened by accident on a quiet Sunday afternoon in March 2012. Brooke was at a friend's house for a sleepover. Isabella was showering, and I needed to check our insurance information on her laptop for a medical appointment. The screen displayed her open email, and there it was. A message from David Chun, her business partner, that made my blood freeze in my veins. "Last night was perfect, Bella. I can't stop thinking about your laugh, the way you looked at me across the restaurant table. I love you more than I thought possible." My hands shook as I scrolled through months of correspondence, intimate messages about stolen lunches, late-night conversations at her office, feelings they'd both tried to resist before surrendering completely. The emotional affair had clearly become physical, probably starting during the worst of our financial crisis when I'd been working 80-hour weeks, and Isabella had needed someone who understood her professional struggles intimately. "What are you doing on my computer?" Isabella's voice came from behind me, sharp with panic and immediate defensiveness. I turned slowly, the laptop screen still glowing with evidence of her betrayal. my heart pounding with adrenaline and disbelief. Who exactly is David, and why is he writing love letters to my wife? Her face went pale, then flushed red with what looked like anger rather than shame. Kenneth, I can explain everything. It's not what you think you're seeing. Explain what exactly? That while I've been killing myself working 3 jobs to save our family, you've been falling in love with someone else? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm and rational. How long, Isabella? How long has this been going on? It's not what you think, she said, grabbing for the laptop, but I held it out of reach. David understands what I'm going through with the company. He gets my dreams, my stress, the pressure I'm under. I supported your dreams for 15 years, I replied, the words exploding out of me with accumulated pain. I gave up my own career advancement to be your foundation. I worked myself into complete exhaustion to keep us afloat while you built your empire. But you never really understood, she shouted back, her composure finally cracking completely. You were supportive, yes, but you never felt the passion I felt for this work. David and I, we share something deeper, something intellectual. We shared something deeper, I said, my voice breaking with emotion. We had 15 years together. A child, a life, a partnership. I slammed the laptop shut with finality. Apparently, that meant nothing compared to your business partner's understanding of quarterly reports. 13-year-old Brooke appeared in the doorway, her face confused and frightened by voices raised in anger. Why are you yelling? What's happening to our family? Isabella immediately switched to protective mother mode, her voice becoming artificially calm. Daddy's upset about work stress. Honey, everything's going to be fine. But everything wasn't fine, and we all knew it with crushing certainty. Over the following weeks, Isabella moved into the guest bedroom while we attempted counseling, but her heart was already gone, transferred to someone who claimed to understand her in ways I apparently never could. She'd found something with David that she insisted I could never provide. Complete understanding of her professional ambitions, shared excitement about business challenges, intellectual partnership that transcended domestic support. The divorce proceedings dragged through 2013 and 2014 with the efficiency of a slow-moving disaster. Isabella retained primary custody of Brooke, keeping our Westchester house and her recovered company. I moved to a small apartment in Queens, visiting my daughter every other weekend under court-supervised arrangements that felt like prison visits designed to humiliate rather than heal. Brooke blamed me entirely for the family's destruction. In her teenage logic, I was the one who left the house. Therefore, I was the abandoner who destroyed everything good. Isabella never contradicted this narrative, perhaps finding it easier than explaining adult complexities about emotional infidelity and irreconcilable differences to a confused adolescent. The last day I spent in the house we'd shared, I packed my clothes and a few personal items while Isabella worked in her office and Brooke stayed at a friend's house to avoid the awkwardness of goodbye. Rain drummed against the windows as I loaded cardboard boxes into my car, each one containing pieces of a life I'd never get back or fully understand. Looking back at the house in my rearview mirror, I knew I was losing more than a marriage and a home. I was losing my identity as a husband and father, my place in a family structure that had defined me for nearly 2 decades. The rain blurred my vision as I drove away from everything that had mattered. I never saw them again until yesterday's funeral, 10 years of silence stretching between us like an unbridgeable canyon. The rain at Greenwood Cemetery fell steadily, turning the elegant memorial service into something from a melancholy film. I stood at the chapel's edge, water dripping from my inexpensive umbrella, watching mourners in expensive black coats gather around Isabella's casket like figures in a painting. 10 years had passed since I'd last seen my daughter, and now Brooke stood near the front of the chapel like a complete stranger. She'd grown into Isabella's vision of success personified. Designer dress, confident posture, the kind of polished appearance that commanded respect in corporate boardrooms. But something cold emanated from her, a hardness that hadn't existed in the child eyed, raised, and loved. I approached hesitantly, unsure of my welcome in this gathering of Isabella's current life. Several mourners recognized me, their whispered conversations and pointed stares making clear I was an unwelcome ghost from Isabella's discarded past. These were her business associates, wealthy friends from her successful present, people who probably knew nothing about the struggling family man who'd once shared her bed and dreams. At the casket, I found a moment of private goodbye. Isabella looked peaceful, younger somehow, as if death had smoothed away the stress lines I remembered from our final years together. I touched the cold metal rim and whispered an apology for all the ways we'd failed each other, for dreams that hadn't survived reality's harsh testing. Look who decided to show up. A voice behind me dripped with theatrical disdain. Dad, the caring father, gracing us with his presence at last. I turned to face my daughter, my heart breaking at the venom in her eyes, the calculated cruelty in her tone. "Brooke," I said quietly. "Save it," she interrupted, stepping closer with predatory confidence. Her voice was pitched perfectly for the watching crowd. 10 years of complete silence, and now you crawl out for the funeral. How thoughtful of you." Before I could respond, she moved slightly backward as I stepped forward, creating the perfect setup for her next calculated move. Her foot shot out with practiced precision, catching my ankle and sending me sprawling across the chapel floor in front of 100 shocked mourners. Gasps rippled through the crowd as I hit the cold marble, my umbrella clattering across the aisle with echoing finality. Cell phones appeared instantly, capturing my humiliation for social media posterity and public judgment. I pulled myself up slowly, maintaining what dignity I could while Brooke watched with obvious satisfaction at her successful performance. "Oops," she said with mock concern, loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. "How clumsy of you, Dad. Just like when you stumbled out of our lives 10 years ago." The chapel fell silent, except for rain against windows and my daughter's steady breathing. I brushed off my jacket and straightened my tie, refusing to let her public performance break me completely in front of these strangers. "I deserve that," I said quietly, meeting her eyes with steady resolve. "But your mother deserved better than this circus you've created." For just a moment, something flickered in Brooke's expression. Surprise, maybe even regret, but it vanished quickly, replaced by the armor of resentment she'd been polishing for a decade. "Mr. Morgan," a voice interrupted our standoff. Robert Sterling, the attorney who'd called me yesterday, approached with obvious discomfort at the scene he'd witnessed. "We need to discuss your late wife's will. There are significant matters that require immediate attention." The mourners began murmuring with new interest, sensing drama beyond simple family dysfunction. Brooke's confident expression wavered for the first time, confusion replacing her satisfied smirk. "What will?" she demanded, looking between Sterling and me with growing alarm. "What's he talking about? Mom never mentioned any will involving him." Sterling cleared his throat uncomfortably, clearly wishing this conversation was happening privately. "Perhaps we should discuss this matter privately. Both of you need to attend a reading tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock sharp." My daughter's perfect composure finally cracked, revealing the uncertainty beneath her polished exterior and calculated performance. The following afternoon, Sterling's Manhattan law office occupied an entire floor of a gleaming midtown tower, its mahogany-paneled conference room designed to intimidate and impress. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered commanding views of the city Isabella had conquered through determination and intelligence, while expensive artwork lined walls that probably cost more than my annual salary. I arrived precisely at 2, wearing my best shirt and the tie I'd bought for Brooke's high school graduation, the last family event I'd been permitted to attend. Brooke swept in 5 minutes later, commanding attention in a designer black suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Punctual, as always, Dad," she said without warmth, settling into the leather chair across from me with calculated distance. "Ready for your consolation prize? This should be entertaining." Sterling entered carrying a thick legal folder, his expression carefully neutral and professionally unreadable. "Thank you both for coming," he said formally. "Isabella's will is quite comprehensive, so please hold all questions until I've finished reading the document in its entirety." He opened the document with ceremony befitting its obvious importance and legal weight. The last will and testament of Isabella Chun Morgan, dated March 15th, 2025. The legal preamble seemed endless. Declarations of sound mind, revocation of previous wills, appointment of executors. Brooke drummed manicured fingers impatiently against the mahogany table, clearly eager to hear her inheritance announced, and this formality concluded. "To my beloved daughter, Brooke Morgan," Sterling read with steady professional voice, "I leave my apartment on Fifth Avenue, all personal effects contained therein, and the sum of $500,000. The drumming stopped abruptly. Brooke's confident expression flickered like a candle in wind. "Wait, that's it?" she asked with growing alarm. "What about the company, the investment portfolio, the rest of the estate? Where's everything else?" Sterling continued reading without acknowledging her interruption or growing panic. "To Kenneth Morgan, my former husband, I leave the remainder of my estate, including all business interests, real property excluding the Fifth Avenue apartment, investment accounts, and liquid assets totaling approximately $55.5 million. The words hit me like a physical blow to the chest. I gripped the table edge, certain I'd misheard something crucial. $55 million. The company Isabella had built from nothing but determination and vision. Everything she'd achieved, everything she'd sacrificed our marriage to create. "That's impossible." Brooke shot to her feet, her face draining of color completely. "There has to be some mistake. Mom would never, she couldn't possibly." "There's more," Sterling said with professional calm, clearing his throat before continuing. "I also leave Kenneth full operational control of Chin Morgan Technologies, trusting his practical wisdom to guide the company's future growth and success." My hands trembled as the full magnitude struck me like lightning. Not just money, but responsibility for Isabella's life's work, for the employees who depended on the company for their livelihoods, for everything she'd sacrificed our marriage to build and protect. "Kenneth," Isabella's voice seemed to speak through Sterling's careful reading, "you were always my foundation, the stable ground beneath my ambitious dreams. I failed you as a wife, but I never forgot your loyalty, your unwavering support during our hardest years. I'm asking you to do what I couldn't. Teach our daughter the value of earning what she receives." Brooke stood frozen, her mouth open in complete disbelief, her careful composure shattered entirely. "This is insane," she whispered. "I'm her daughter. I worked with her for 3 years. I understood the business better than anyone." "The will includes a personal message for Brooke," Sterling continued with gentle authority. "My darling daughter, you have intelligence and unlimited potential, but you've never learned to build something from struggle. $500,000 is enough to start any life you choose, if you choose wisely. Your father can teach you what I failed to, that the most valuable things in life must be earned, not simply inherited." Silence filled the elegant conference room like thick fog, heavy with shock and shattered expectations. I stared at the legal documents spread before me, trying to process that my quiet life of financial struggle had just been completely obliterated. Brooke's silence stretched until it became dangerous, like the calm before a devastating storm. "This is insane." Brooke's voice finally shattered the conference room's professional atmosphere like breaking crystal. She slammed both palms against the mahogany table, sending Sterling's carefully arranged documents flying across the polished surface. "This will is fraudulent. He bribed you somehow. He corrupted my mother when she was vulnerable and dying." I sat frozen, still processing the impossible reality that had just been thrust upon me. $55 million. Isabella's company that had cost us our marriage. Everything she'd built during the years we'd been apart. Now, somehow mine to manage and protect. Miss Morgan, I understand this is profoundly shocking, Sterling replied with practiced calm, gathering scattered papers with efficient movements. However, this was prepared with multiple witnesses, notarized documentation, and video testimony from your mother. The security protocols make fraud completely impossible. I don't care about your protocols. Brooke whirled on me, her face flushed with rage and disbelief. Dad, what did you promise her? What lies did you tell? Did you threaten her when she was dying and alone? The accusation hit like a physical blow to my integrity and character. Brooke, I swear to you on everything I hold sacred, I knew nothing about this. Absolutely nothing. I haven't spoken to your mother in 10 years, except through brief Christmas cards. Lies. She began pacing frantically, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown timer to explosion. Mom would never give you everything she worked for. She built that company herself. She earned every dollar while you sat in your pathetic apartment doing absolutely nothing productive. Sterling cleared his throat with legal authority, his voice cutting through the emotional chaos. I have security footage of your mother recording her final testament just 3 months ago. She was completely alone, lucid, and emphatic about her decisions. The will underwent 3 separate legal reviews by independent attorneys. Then she was coerced, blackmailed somehow. Brooke insisted, her professional composure evaporating entirely, revealing the spoiled child beneath the corporate facade. Someone got to her when she was vulnerable. This is my inheritance, my company, my money that I've worked for and deserved. I found my voice, though it felt foreign in my throat after such devastating revelations. Brooke, if this is legitimate, and apparently it is beyond question, then your mother had her reasons. She left you a personal message explaining her decision-making process. I don't want her explanations, she screamed, spinning to face me with fury that had been building for years. I want what's rightfully mine. I worked with her every day. I understood the business operations. You've never even seen the inside of corporate boardroom. Your mother specifically requested that Kenneth learn the business operations. Sterling interjected smoothly, maintaining professional composure despite the emotional chaos. She arranged for a comprehensive transition period with the existing management team to ensure continuity. The reality began settling over me like a heavy blanket woven from responsibility and obligation. This wasn't just money to spend freely. It was responsibility for hundreds of employees, for decisions that affected real lives and families, for continuing Isabella's vision in ways I couldn't yet begin to comprehend. This won't stand, Brooke declared, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that carried more threat than her earlier shouting. I'm filing a lawsuit first thing tomorrow morning. I'm hiring the best attorneys in New York. I'm going to expose this corruption publicly and completely. She grabbed her expensive purse and stalked toward the door with theatrical determination, then turned back with a smile that contained no warmth, only calculated malice. Enjoy your moment, Dad. It won't last long at all. When I'm finished with you, you'll be lucky to keep that pathetic apartment in Queens. The conference room door slammed behind her with finality that echoed through the elegant space like a gunshot. Sterling and I sat in heavy silence for several long moments, the weight of family destruction settling between us like an unwelcome third presence. Mr. Morgan, he said finally, his voice gentle with understanding, I need to explain exactly what you've actually inherited and the responsibilities that come with it. 2 weeks later, I stood in the gleaming headquarters of Chun Morgan Technologies, trying to comprehend the empire Isabella had built from the ashes of our failed marriage. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered commanding views of Manhattan's concrete canyon, while state-of-the-art workstations buzzed with the quiet efficiency of innovation in constant motion. Your wife, your ex-wife, was truly remarkable, explained Sarah Chun, the company's chief operating officer and apparently no relation to David despite sharing a surname. She revolutionized project management software for remote teams across multiple industries. We've got contracts with Fortune 500 companies across 3 continents and growing. The numbers were genuinely staggering. 230 employees, 50 million in annual revenue. Growth projections that would double the company's value within 5 years if managed properly. Isabella hadn't just succeeded in business. She'd built something that genuinely mattered, something that employed people and solved real problems for organizations worldwide. She talked about you sometimes, Sarah added quietly as we toured the research and development floor, especially near the end of her life. She said you were the foundation that let her dare to dream big when others would have played it safe. Each day brought new revelations about Isabella's vision and deeply held values. She'd established scholarships for underprivileged students pursuing technology careers. The company offered 6 months paid family leave and profit sharing for all employees regardless of position. She'd created exactly the kind of workplace she'd dreamed about in our college conversations decades ago. Meanwhile, Brooke's legal challenge moved through the courts with predictable determination and expensive legal representation. Her attorneys filed motions claiming undue influence, mental incapacity, and systematic fraud. Sterling prepared our defense with meticulous care, assembling documentation that read like a fortress of legal protection built over months of careful planning. The hearing took place in federal court on a gray morning that matched my solemn mood perfectly. Brooke arrived with 3 expensive lawyers, their confidence radiating like costly cologne throughout the courtroom. Your Honor, Brooke's lead attorney declared with theatrical authority, we contend that Kenneth Morgan systematically manipulated a dying woman through promises of reconciliation, exploiting her guilt about their failed marriage for financial gain. The accusation stung because it contained a grain of truth I wished were real. I would have treasured reconciliation with Isabella more than any amount of money. Would have gladly traded all this wealth for one honest conversation about our mistakes and mutual failures. Sterling's response was methodical and absolutely devastating to their claims. Security footage showed Isabella alone and completely determined while recording her video testament. Medical records proved her mental acuity right until her sudden death. Financial records demonstrated that she'd been planning this distribution for over a year with careful consideration. Furthermore, Your Honor, Sterling continued, producing a thick folder of evidence. Kenneth Morgan had absolutely no knowledge of these provisions. Phone records show no contact between the parties for a decade. The will was secured in our vault with explicit instructions that he not be contacted until after Mrs. Chen Morgan's death. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair and intelligent eyes, reviewed the evidence with careful attention to detail. After 2 hours of testimony and legal argument, she delivered her ruling with clear judicial authority. The petition is denied completely. This will demonstrate clear intent, proper execution, and absolute legal validity. The claims of fraud and undue influence are not supported by any credible evidence presented to this court. Brooke's face crumpled as her attorneys gathered their papers in obvious defeat. She had gambled her entire inheritance on this challenge and lost spectacularly, leaving her with nothing but legal bills and shattered expectations. As we left the courthouse, I felt vindicated but not victorious. Justice had been served according to law, but a family remained broken beyond any hope of repair. A month later, my phone rang in the quiet of my Queens apartment, the same apartment that no longer felt quite so small now that I understood the resources at my disposal and the responsibilities they carried. The phone's shrill ring cut through the evening's silence like a blade. I've been reading quarterly reports from the company, still amazed that Isabella had entrusted me with something so magnificent and complex. Dad, the voice was different. Smaller, vulnerable, stripped of the venom I'd heard in the courthouse and at the funeral. It's Brooke. Could we possibly talk? A month of complete silence had passed since her legal defeat. I'd heard through Sterling that she'd spent most of her inheritance on attorney fees, leaving her with barely enough for a security deposit on a modest apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. Of course we can talk, I said carefully, settling into my worn recliner with cautious hope. What's on your mind, sweetheart? I was wrong. The words came out in a rush, as if she'd rehearsed them countless times. About everything. About you, about the will, about Mom's decisions. I've had time to think clearly, and I realized I was just hurt and scared and angry. I recognized the tone immediately. The same calculated sweetness she'd used as a child when asking for allowance increases or later curfews. The manipulative quality that had served her well in business, but poorly in relationships. I'm listening, I said simply, offering no encouragement or discouragement. I want to make things right between us, Dad. I want to be a family again, to rebuild what we lost. Her voice caught beautifully on the word family, a performance worthy of professional theater. I know, I said terrible things, accused you of awful things. I was grieving and confused and not thinking clearly. Brooke, I appreciate you calling. I'm glad you're reaching out, but I need something from you first. I need your help, Dad. The vulnerability cracked slightly, revealing desperation underneath the polished exterior. I lost my job when the lawsuit became public knowledge. My apartment applications keep getting rejected because of my financial situation. I'm running out of money, and I honestly don't know what to do anymore. There it was, the real reason for her newfound humility and family interest. I'd learned to recognize manipulation during my business education these past weeks, studying Isabella's notes about employee management and motivation psychology. I understand you're struggling, and I'm sorry you're going through this difficult time, I said gently. But before we discuss any kind of assistance, we need to establish some clear ground rules for moving forward. Anything, she said quickly. I'll do anything to fix this relationship and make things right between us. First, you need to get a job, I said firmly. Not an executive position, not management, an entry-level job where you learn what it means to earn your way through honest work. Silence stretched across the phone line like a chasm opening between us. Dad, I have an MBA from a prestigious university, she said finally. I worked at Mom's company for 3 years in a responsible position. Working for your mother isn't the same as building something yourself or earning respect through your own efforts, I replied. Isabella wanted you to learn responsibility and character, and that starts with earning your own way without family connections. But I could help you run the company, she said desperately. I know the systems, the clients, the business operations better than you do. Eventually, perhaps, when you've proven yourself capable of success without family money or connections. But first, you prove you can succeed on your own merit. You find work, you pay your own rent, you build your own life through effort and determination. That's not fair. The mask slipped, revealing familiar anger beneath the performance. I shouldn't have to start over like some college graduate with no experience. Your mother started over many times, I reminded her gently. She worked restaurant jobs to pay for college. She took out loans for her first business attempt. She earned everything she achieved through intelligence and hard work, not inheritance. This is punishment, isn't it? She accused. You're enjoying watching me struggle after everything that happened. No, Brooke, I said with patience born of hard-won wisdom. This is education. The same education Isabella tried to give you, but you were too privileged and protected to receive it properly. I paused, letting the words sink in with their full weight. If you want a relationship with me, it begins with you proving you can stand on your own feet like an adult. When you can support yourself through your own efforts, we'll talk about the next steps. And if I do this, she asked quietly, if I get some job and struggle to pay rent like ordinary people, then what happens? Then we talk again, I said simply. We build trust slowly and carefully. We see if you can become the woman your mother believed you could be with proper guidance and genuine effort. Another long silence, filled with consideration and internal struggle. When she spoke again, the manipulation was gone, replaced by something that might have been genuine desperation mixed with dawning understanding. I don't know how to do this, Dad, she admitted with painful honesty. I've never been without money, without connections, without someone taking care of all the difficult details. I don't know how ordinary people live. Then it's time you learned, I said gently but firmly. Your mother left you enough for a fresh start if you use it wisely. This is your opportunity to discover who you really are when everything is earned rather than given. Dad, she asked quietly, do you think she'd be proud of me if I did this, if I actually try to change? For the first time in our conversation, I heard the lost child beneath the entitled adult, the daughter I'd once known and loved before years of privilege had corrupted her character. I think she'd be proud of you for trying, I said with genuine warmth. That's all she ever wanted, for you to try building something yourself and discovering your own strength and character. After hanging up, I sat in my small apartment, no longer the same man who'd received that devastating phone call about Isabella's death just 2 months ago. I now controlled more wealth than I'd ever imagined possible. But more importantly, I understood the profound responsibility that came with it. Isabella had given me the tools to complete our daughter's education, not in business or technology, but in character development and moral strength. Whether Brooke chose to learn these lessons remained entirely up to her decision and commitment. The phone sat silent beside me, and for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace with the future and whatever it might bring. Isabella's final gift hadn't been money or power, but the opportunity to teach our daughter the values we'd both failed to instill during her childhood. The responsibility was heavy, but the purpose was clear. Some lessons can only be learned through struggle, and some gifts can only be received by those who've learned to earn them through genuine effort and personal growth. Thank you for joining me in this story of unexpected inheritance, family complexity, and the profound importance of earning respect through character rather than demanding it through birthright. If this resonated with your own life experiences and the challenges of teaching responsibility across generations, I invite you to subscribe for more thoughtful narratives that explore the complexity of family, loyalty, and standing up for what's right. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one and truly value the wisdom our community brings to these conversations. Your stories and insights help others who may be facing similar challenges with family dynamics and the delicate balance between generosity and enabling. Until next time, remember that the most valuable lessons often come through struggle, and the most meaningful relationships are built on mutual respect earned through character rather than given through obligation.